What's up, gang? Welcome to Room and Board. My name's Chris George, and today we are taking a look at the game Eero by Kanat Sadamwatana. And I'm sorry if I am mispronouncing that, Kanat. But this is a little game that was on Kickstarter a while back, which I described as checkers and chess, but on acid. And having received the game and played it, I stand by that comparison. Now, this was sent to me for review. This was actually one of my picks of the week in a Monday crowdfunding countdown video. If you are unfamiliar of those videos, I take a look at all the Kickstarter campaigns finishing up that week. And then after reviewing them all, I do a pick for me and a pick for you. And I can't quite remember if Eero was the pick for me or the pick for you, but it could have been either. But this is one that I was really excited about. I thought looked very interesting. And just because something has a simple mechanical breakdown doesn't necessarily mean that it's not going to be a good game. And I think this is one of those games that falls into that category. And so the designer watches this channel actually and saw that I was interested in it and offered to send me this copy for review. And so I am reviewing it now, and I wanted to get it out now because if you are interested in purchasing this, this will be offered on their latest Kickstarter campaign for an additional game that I have yet to cover or look at whatsoever, but I'm sure that will be coming up in another Monday video. However, if you've just stumbled upon this channel now for the first time through Board Game Geek or whatever, welcome, and I'll give you a brief breakdown of how the game is played and then tell you what I think about it. Because there's not too much to talk about here because the mechanics are very simple. You're going to get 12 of these squares, and these squares all have different colors on them, and you will assemble these squares to form a 3x4 grid, or a 6x16 grid, if you want to think about it by the individual squares. And one player will have the white pieces, the other player will have the black pieces. Either player can go first, it doesn't matter. You'll put out 12 of these on the board and you'll reserve 4 of them in what is called your reserve, and these pieces can be swapped in and out later. And the goal of the game is very simple. Get one of your pieces to the opposite side of the board. When you do, you win. That's it. It's not about capturing a king. It's not about taking out all the other pieces. It's just getting that one Lone Ranger as far as they can into behind enemy lines. Specifically, if you're able to Photoshop them first into the movie behind enemy lines, you win the game. But barring that, if you get them to the last line of defense, well then you also win as well. But the key to this game, and you'll see that the board is broken down into all these different colorful squares, your pieces can only move on specific colored squares. So each piece can move up to 3 spaces each turn, but they can only move on to the combination of colors that resides on the top of their head. They're predestined for that specific path of greatness. And they cannot deviate from that, or else they'll be ejected from the Truman Show. I don't know which parallel we're doing behind enemy lines of the Truman Show. It doesn't matter. So that's what you can do on your turn. You move your piece up to 3 spaces. They don't have to move 3 spaces. They can move up to 3 spaces, position yourself tactically, or instead of moving a piece, you can take a piece from your reserve, and these are the pieces that you didn't start with on the board, or which ones have already been captured, and you can replace any piece that you have on the board with any piece from your reserve. So that's a way to switch up the movement and allow yourself that run into the opposing territory as well, which I think is a really great move and a really smart design mechanic, because then you're not stuck with just an impassable board position, but it still costs you a lot because it costs you a whole turn, and that makes a huge difference in terms of the timing and the strategy. It enables your opponent to position themselves a little bit better, and so hopefully that swap has compensated for that as well, because now you're able to move wherever you want. And so the strategy of the game comes in setting yourself up and sacrificing pieces so you can just edge your piece into a corner and have it not be touchable by the other pieces on the board. It's a very, very simple game, but because every game you mix up these different tiles, the only caveat is your back line must contain one of every color so that every piece has a viable path to entry, so to speak. And this is one of those games which could have an enormous amount of analysis paralysis or strategy to it or pre-planning to it. When you set up the board, you could potentially map out your entire pathway and hope that it doesn't get blocked by your opponent's board. But this is also a game where you can just set up the board, randomly put your pieces down, instead of taking the time and choosing where they want to start, and just play a quick couple games. And honestly, that is mostly how I've approached this game, which is strange because I normally like to just sit and math everything out and then make the perfect move and then be blindsided by a move that I never saw coming in the 20 minutes I sat there staring at the board. But in this one, I think because there are going to be so many permutations and so many possibilities of movement, that it's almost more fun just to do it quickly, set up the pieces randomly, and just move and see what happens. If you grew up playing checkers and thought, oh, I can't play checkers anymore, now I'm a true gamer, then this is like the exact game that you should be purchasing. Because it has a surprising depth of strategy combined with an exciting amount of variability and replayability, because the board and the pieces are randomized every time. And I personally find, or maybe I'm just not a supreme genius at it yet, but I personally find that because the board is so colorful and the patterns are unfamiliar to you, because they're just three colors. You look and say, oh, can I move here? Where are the three colors? Each pathway will always be unique. This is the type of game that I will never get to that strategic level, so to speak, or ultimate strategy or pre-planning level, and I'm completely okay with that. This is a fun, easy to play tactical game, and it's almost a good game for people who don't like tactical games as well. I personally really enjoy chess. I grew up on chess, and so I like games that have that sort of tactical chess element to it, but I play with a lot of people, my girlfriend for example, who hate that sort of thing. And so Euro is kind of a nice middle ground in terms of I get to kind of scratch that little tactical side of my brain, and she can just move the pieces and also have fun pursuing her goals because it's not too overwhelming or too tactical. And the quality here is great. It really is. These pieces, they're solid cardboard. These chips are really nice quality. They're poker chip quality. You can, well, I'll do it right in front of my mic so you can hear it. Wow. And I think in a game like this, which focuses only on moving the chips, the tactile nature of the chips makes a significant deal. And so they're fun to move and they feel satisfying to move around the board. And that definitely elevates the experience. And what I do love, and all games with color should include this, is that they've included a colorblind sticker set to it. And on the back of each tile, there are symbols, different symbols for each color. So this is completely colorblind friendly, and they have made a point to make it colorblind friendly. And I wasn't sure if I was going to actually put the stickers on my pieces. I likely won't, but the way the pieces are printed, you'll see that on the black pieces, the dark green tends to blend in a little bit much with the piece, but when you put the sticker on it, it actually pops a little bit better. The color transferred a little bit better to the sticker version of the black piece than the actual black piece. So that's made me reconsider a little bit, because that's the only little issue that happened with the quality. And who knows, maybe this is the first printing, and that might change in subsequent printings. Now, with that in mind though, you are paying a little bit more for this sort of quality upgrade, because the pieces are a nice quality. I think it is around $30, or at least that was the first Kickstarter. It probably will be subject to change wherever you get it from, and whatever currency you're getting it from, plus whatever shipping you're adding on top of that. So who knows, you'll have to make that sort of cost valuation for your own self. But I am less hesitant at recommending it at that cost point, because the components are of such a nice quality. They even threw in a nice little silk felt bag or whatever it is that feels very nice, that I probably will never include in the box because I find it makes it harder for the box to close. But it's nice to have to put your pieces in to pull them out from the box. So I think that's it. I'm sure you can get a sense whether or not you'd be interested in this game from this review, or at least I hope that you can. There's not too much more that I really need to talk to you about other than my fear that it was going to be too complicated with all the different pathways was a little bit unfounded, and I was very excited to discover that. It could hit that level of complexity if you have people who sit and stare at the board, but I just don't think that's the most fun way to experience this. I think it's a lot more fun to experience it fast and furious, and almost if you had a timer of sorts to try to trace the different pathways and see if you're going to get caught by the other person, or if you can throw your piece into a blind spot and then charge your way forward for the win. That's Eero. Official Room and Board Judgment. It gets the Room and Board seal of approval. It really does. I'm thrilled that this met all of the expectations that I expected it would meet when I was looking at that first initial campaign page as well. Or maybe I'm just blowing smoke up my own butt because I called it being a good game way back when it was on Kickstarter, and I cannot see that I have been wrong this whole time. No, obviously it won't be for everyone if you don't like those sort of tactical things, if you hate checkers or don't have any fondness for it. I think you'll know whether or not you want to shell out the money for it. But for me, it was a fun time and is one that I will definitely pull out and just play a quick game of if we're lounging on the couch and don't want to play anything, but want to play a game. This is one of those games that falls into that category of just can be as engaging or as mindless as you'd like. Anyway, I hope you found this review helpful. If you're interested in purchasing Eero, check out their latest Kickstarter. I'll put a link to that in the description below. That's all I got. Once again, my name's Chris George. I don't have a catchphrase. But I will say that this sort of checkers acid is definitely my favorite type of acid, and not the one that made me see Aunt Mildred looming over my bed every night for years. That's one trip you don't want to go on. Anyway, see you later. See you in the next one.